Welcome back, and let's talk about 5 reasons why employees stay. So, if you've been tuning in, this is sort of part 3 of a 3-part series that started with an explanation of the difference between turnover, attrition, and retention, followed by the second part, which was all about why employees quit. And today we're going to talk about why employees stay. And it's not for exactly the same reasons that they quit. Now, it wouldn't be me if I didn't start with a little bit of nerdy academia. So let's talk about the academic concept that really started being researched in the early 2000s when all the academic nerds realized maybe we shouldn't only study why people leave. Maybe we should study why they stay. And one of the main concepts on how they study that was a notion called job embeddedness. Now, job embeddedness really was broken into 3 categories. 1, the links that people have with others in their organization. 2, the fit that employees have with their organization. And then 3, what they would lose or give up if they left the organization. And I think this study and this notion around the employee with others, the employee's fit to their role or expectations, and then what the employees give up or lose when they leave is really an amazing holistic way of thinking about the staying equation, and how those pieces aren't always the same as the leaving equation. And in fact, I think there's another interesting concept which is referred to as the shock, which is basically the concept that some employees may have a lot of reasons building up over time as to why they might choose to leave or why they're choosing to stay. But that oftentimes there's this shock or occurrence that happens that can differentiate whether or not people make the choice to leave. And that those who are more embedded in their job are more likely to stay and be there even through the shock than those who are less embedded. So I think that's a really interesting concept because a lot of times we just think about the act of quitting. We don't think about the fact that there are mediating factors that every day might prevent or provoke a person to leave when an occurrence may happen. That occurrence could be about the organization, about something that happened to them personally, but it's very much a part of it. So when we break job embeddedness out of the academic sphere, and let's go a little bit more practitioner here, my top 5 that I believe are the reasons why people stay do actually include some of the reasons why they quit. I know, I said they're not always the same, but I'll just call out number 1. I'm going to cheat here and I'm going to smush together 2 that I said in the last video: culture and engagement. I gave some good stats around why employees quit when culture and engagement aren't aligned with the person. And I would call out that those are 2 that, while strong on the reasons why people quit, are also incredibly strong on the reasons why people stay. But getting on to some of the different ones, I'll call out my number 2, second most important, is relationships that employees have with other people. So Ceridian did this study of high performance employees, and the number 1 reason that these high performers gave for staying with an organization was their relationships with colleagues. It was over 49% of the high performers said that that's why they stay. So I think there's a lot of power to that links. It's that notion of job embeddedness of links to others. Another important facet of the links to others is one that I have to bring up because Alvin left a great comment in the last video about managers. And there's the saying around people don't leave jobs or companies, they leave bad managers. But I'll say the manager story might be a little more nuanced. I think there's definitely something to the comment around people leaving bad managers. In fact, I found a couple studies that are a little depressing. There was one done by Hogan Assessments in which the people that they surveyed, over 75% of them said that the worst part of their job was their direct manager. Ouch. There's another study done with about 1,000 individuals in which they said that they would forego more pay in exchange for a better manager. I'm not discounting this concept, but I will say I think it's a little more nuanced than people give it credit for. And I think that's because of some of the other factors like culture and engagement. So managers play a huge part in driving the culture of an organization. And even more so, we've seen study after study that shows a direct, almost straight linear correlation between an employee's engagement and the effectiveness of their manager. I think there's definitely a relationship with manager there, and I think the effects can be seen through other items on the list, for example, engagement and culture. I think this notion of the manager also really plays in with that concept of the shock or induced exit. I think there could be a bad situation, an incident, a shock that might happen to two different employees. And one employee with a bad manager may be likely to exit, to leave as a result of the shock. But at the same time, another individual experiencing the same shock might be more likely to stay because of that relationship and how they feel because of how the manager has handled it, explained it, or carried them through it. So I think there's a lot of ways that the good manager, bad manager scenario plays out and can really be retentive in terms of influencing the way that employees experience the work world and their intentions to stay. The third item on my list is purpose or meaning of work. I believe that employees want to be part of something special. They want to build something that matters. They care about the vision and the mission or the social impact of the organization that they're working for. That same Ceridian study that I mentioned earlier had one of its next highest outcomes of high performers and why they stay, 47%, being that they were working on something meaningful and having an impact in the world. So I think one of the reasons that people stay is to work on things that matter. Number 4 is not only that employees want to work on things that matter, but employees want to be recognized and acknowledged for the work that they do, and that work contributes to the thing that they're working on. There's a study done in Gallup where 15% lower likelihood of leaving for employees who felt that their skills were being applied on work that aligned and that mattered. And finally, number 5, one that is near and dear to my heart, career development and career progression. This is one that I feel is such a critical component of having a happy and successful organization. And there was a study that was done by Robert Half that showed that there was a 30 to 50% higher retention rate for organizations that had a strong learning and development culture. There's been studies that also show that especially in the Generation X and Millennial generations, that being able to develop skills is one of the key contributors to wanting to stay with an organization. And another study by Willis Towers Watson showed that it was about a 70% of high risk for leaving employees said that it was because they felt that there was a lack of progression and promotion opportunity in the organization that they were considering to leave. So if I had to pick them, these would be my top 5 why people stay. Yes, I cheated and smushed culture and engagement together, but top 6 sounded funny, so you get top 5. Now, I wouldn't be me if I didn't give you at least one kind of dark piece of the analysis, which is not all retention is good. I read this quote once that I loved. It was saying that the old cliche around, if you don't like this job, you can leave, is about as naive as telling a monkey in a zoo that if they don't like the bananas, they can go back to the jungle. Not everyone who's disengaged with the organization, that feels disconnected or isn't quite well suited with their skills or their development ambitions, is going to be able to leave. And so you might have a population of reluctant stayers, if you will, and that's just part of the puzzle and how we think about organizations and shifts over time. So hopefully you don't have too many of those. And actually, I want to leave you with a more positive statement at the end, which is I have found that there is research supporting the HR and talent management activities that increase things like job embeddedness, engagement, recognition, have been shown to help with the retention picture. So if you find yourself in a position to acknowledge or recognize people for the work, to help create positive links and relationships with your colleagues or your teams or your manager, just know that you'll be playing your part in setting the positive retention atmosphere for the organization. And I hope you're able to do that. I also hope that you'll stay tuned. Please hit the subscribe button and a little bell that pops up after it. If you don't hit the bell, you don't get notified. So if you want to see more, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and I hope I see you again next week.